welcome to Becca's Book Chat. Many, if not most of you, will have noticed that I am not Becca. My name is Zach and I will be your host today. Becca could not be with us. I'm sure it's all just a big misunderstanding though, and she will be released from custody soon. We're going to talk about one of our fastest growing areas in the library today, both in terms of additional numbers to the collection and also new readers. It's going to be graphic novels. So they are more popular now than they've probably ever been, and there are as many different kinds of graphic novels as there are people, as I will go through in just a moment. And some of you may know this already, we have just recently reopened for browsing, and it is a very browsable collection. It's true that you should never judge a book by its cover, but if there were books that you were going to judge by their cover, graphic novels would probably be one of the better choices, as they are a mode of storytelling based almost entirely upon the visual, in addition to the dialogue speech bubbles. So, that said, some of you may be familiar with them already. I will be going through some of the newer ones we have in. For those of you that have not been big graphic novel readers before, I will also highlight some of the different kinds that you can expect to see. And we're going to start with the comic book based variety, which is probably what many people think of when they think of graphic novels. We have here, this is volume 1 in G. Willow Wilson's Wonder Woman run. G. Willow Wilson is known for her work on the popular Ms. Marvel comics, but this is her run with Wonder Woman in DC. This is a trade paperback. This is a collection of one-issue comics that were brought together in a graphic novel form. In this one, sorry, it's floppy, Spider-Man Life Story by Chip Zdarsky. This one is not one that was necessarily released as single issues in traditional comic format. This was one that was written specifically for the graphic novel format. It tells the life of Spider-Man if it were to follow along in actual real time. So 57 years ago, I think, is when Spider-Man first came around, and he was supposed to be 15 at this time, or at that time when he was bitten. So in this, it shows the time from that he was 15 to the present day, passing through all of the time in between, so that he is now 72, and what his life would have looked like. So that's the sort of comic book graphic novels that we have, but we've got lots of other kinds. If you want to stick with fiction, this one is A Basket Full of Heads by Joe Hill, a notable horror author and the son of Stephen King. He's got several graphic novels that he's worked on. This one is about a young lady named June, who is in a bit of a situation, as you'd anticipate from a Joe Hill story. Kidnapped boyfriend, murderous criminals after her, and all she has is a magic decapitating axe, which really doesn't sound like the worst situation for her. So there's that. Paul is Dead is an interesting graphic novel that really takes off of the story, the rumor that Paul McCartney actually died in a car crash in the mid-60s and had been replaced by a lookalike. This graphic novel sort of takes that idea and runs with it, and interesting things ensue. Still in fiction, but going a little bit in a new direction. There are a lot of classical literature and other more intimidating books from more recent years that were adapted into graphic format. So, for example, if you've ever wanted to read Don Quixote, but it was intimidating because it's a big book and 400 years old in Spanish, pick up the graphic novel version of it. It's very well done and true to the original. I'm sure there's bits and pieces that you would obviously get if you were to read it rather than to go through the graphic novel format, but far less intimidating and a quicker read. We've got just a few more here. We've got Welcome to the New World. This is a story about a refugee family that it had immigrated to the United States after having to flee the civil war in Syria, and about them trying to build a life here. There are all sorts of nonfiction graphic novels in addition to the fiction and the comic book variety. And quite a few of them deal with current events, and many of them are educational or biographical. This one is in that same vein. This is a very well-researched history of the shooting of several students at Kent State University in 1970 by the Ohio National Guard. So it's very well-researched and well done. It's based on a lot of eyewitness interviews. It just happens to be in a graphic format. So it's accessible to a lot more people, I think, than it had been if it would have been if it had just been written and printed traditionally. So that's just a small sampling of what we have in graphic novels. You are welcome now to come and browse. Just wear a mask, please. And we will see you at the library soon.